Welcome to my Bob Thurman podcast. I'm so grateful some good friends enabled me to present them to you. If you enjoy them and find them useful, please think of becoming a member of Tibet House US to help preserve Tibetan culture. Tibet House is the Dalai Lama's cultural center in America. All best wishes. Have a great day.
This is episode 332, Shambhala, Politics, and Climate Change, a Thanksgiving message for 2023.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving. Here I am, happy as a clam, in front of the Kalachakra mandala, which I love. And I especially like it because I was initiated in it by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and I especially like him. And also because it reminds me of the eventual advent of Shambhala in everyone's view, which is already here in my view. You know, I was deeply inspired by a wonderful Christian teacher, David Spangler, he's not prominent nowadays, and I think he's living peacefully. He's living peacefully. He's younger than me, and he lives in the Seattle area, I think. And I haven't seen him in way too long. I think he's kind of a little quiet, or else I'm just missing his circles. But he and I had this wonderful meeting up about this sort of Armageddon thing, because he had been, as a youth, he was somewhat recruited by family members, like Krishnamurti, you know, to be a great evangelist and teach about, you know, the New Jerusalem and Armageddon and this kind of thing. And then he became a medium for John, which it's never said, but I always think it's John of Patmos reincarnated, but the Christians can't say that because they don't want to have a formal reincarnation doctrine. But I always thought it was, because he kind of refused to do their version of the rapture, which puts, you know, Jesus's return as a very violent business. And he said that the New Jerusalem is already here. And there's this sort of like network of light on this planet's surface. He did this when he was at Findhorn, David Spangler. Network of light. And if you love others, and you're kind, and you're gentle, and you're intelligent and wise, and you then will find that you are standing on this thread of light. Well, then people who are angry and frightened and hostile to other people and abusive and manipulative, they are kind of falling through the cracks. And that's already happening, in other words, the way he interpreted the book of Revelation as a Christian. And he is still and has always been a faithful Christian. He just didn't want to think badly of Jesus as coming back with a sword and banging people and killing them and forcing them to convert to some conquest ideology or version of Christianity that is not the one that Jesus taught, which is love thy enemy, even much less love thy neighbor as thyself, overcoming selfishness and violence, of course, showing that even violence couldn't kill him as a beloved person, you know. So I love that guy, and he inspired me at the time, because I always had that feeling about Shambhala, because the Buddhists also have a kind of apocalyptic thing with a big war, and then the good guys win, and the bad guys get quieted down and calmed down, and then everything is fine. But they don't say everybody has to be a Buddhist, but they just say everyone will be okay for spirituality without any conquering, using religion as a conquering ideology. That's what Shambhala means, that spirituality and gentleness and world peace flourishes. And that's what I believe. And therefore I believe Shambhala is already here. And why is it not seem to be here? And this is what my podcast today on Thanksgiving is. And what I'm giving thanks for is people who are nowadays getting really trouble and a lot of hard time because of bad leadership. And we all love regular people who do regular work in a climate and a circumstance where you can live well enough by doing your duty, and you're not where you can slave away all day long and all night and you still can't get by, which is what happens when wealth gets too concentrated in powerful people at the top. And I'm not anti-capitalist, and I am really anti the fake pretense of communists, which are these dictatorships. So don't think I'm talking about that. I am talking about democratic socialism or socialistic democracy or democratism. We could have a king, as far as I'm concerned, on top of that, but like the King of England, actually powerless in regard to politics and unable to take it, King of Sweden, King of Holland. They only have some little bit of moral and social, ethical prestige that makes them a model for people, and they can try to ask people to come on now, don't be idiots, about governments, but they don't have actual political power. So you can have a socialistic thing like England should be having, has had, and Holland and Norway and Sweden. That's what I mean by socialistic. And so when people are just people and they insist on living peacefully, they're in Shambhala, even though some bad people are wrecking the planet. And then in that light, there's horrible news on the climate frontier as well as good news. But the horrible news is more moneyed than the good news. $1 trillion was spent in 2022, I believe is a reliable figure that I've seen, and only $500 million was spent. I think it's $1 trillion has already been spent in 2023, and $500 million was spent in total of 22. And let's hope another $500 million or maybe a bit more is spent now. Although that figure includes 40%, which is supposedly what China is spending, which they may be pretending they're spending on climate because they're maybe making products they hope to sell for climate, but they're doing it with factories powered by coal-fired power plants. So still the more carbon is being put up than ever was every year. It's increasing every year, even though we're in this crisis. So that's my first call I wanted to say today on Thanksgiving. I'm giving thanks that we have 8 billion wonderful people, human beings on our planet, and we have trillions of beautiful animal people who are also people, actually, caught in the unfortunate, less fortunate animal form, let's say. Have been human, will be human again, giving beginningless and endlessness of life. So cheer up about it. They might be extinguished in some great extinction that poor Greta is upset about, and I'm also upset about it. But on the other hand, the individuals dying are reborn, and they might hopefully decide even maybe for negative reasons, because humans did stuff that caused them to be exterminated. Maybe they'll be born in a different animal form closer to the human one, which is dominating the planet, not because we're more nasty and powerful, but because we are more cooperative and empathetic. And so our individual weakness is compensated for by our collective genius of making destructive machines. So therefore we control the other animal species on the planet. And we're to such an extent that we're wrecking ourselves, actually, and fighting with the other humans. And we are wrecking the whole place. So we can make it worse, but that's because we have evolutionarily positive attributes of being able to get along in groups in a better way than the chimpanzees and others. And we are reaching the point on the planet where we can get along with everybody on the planet. There will be no alien bad races or no humans who are unworthy of good life like all of us can have, because we're in this beautiful planet that can feed us all if we take care of it. Okay. So for the koan here that I want you to reflect on Thanksgiving is thank goodness for the 8 billion wonderful people, minus 2,000 tyrannical, over powerful, even freaked out and stressed by the excess power, frightened themselves by it, even though they seem so powerful to us ordinaries. And somehow the fear of them and their wish to conquer and dominate and continue to manipulate and their disrespect for we ordinaries is causing them to create so much damage to us and so much damage to the planet that they could wreck the whole thing within another 20, 30 years. And we really would pass tipping points where we'd have like 150 degrees Fahrenheit for months and weeks on end in different areas of the world, with people dying from plus 95 wet bulb day and night, inability to rest, and crashing the energy systems in such poor places, and people dying from heat en masse, millions. As Kim Stanley Robinson so brilliantly illustrated in his Cli-Fi, that is climate sci-fi novel, which everyone should read, The Ministry for the Future. Okay. So this is the koan. There's a few thousand over here and 8 billion over here. But old obsolete systems of tyrannical dictatorship, either open, overt dictatorship, or sort of corporate, money dictatorship, and or those combined when it becomes fascism, overt fascism. These systems are disempowering the 8 billion to be able to control, which the control doesn't mean exterminate. Control means have democracy and vote them out, cause them to retire, send them to rehabilitation for ex-dictators, hopefully not have to do some horrible things to them, so they can mend their ways and try to find happiness themselves and stop being afraid. That's the trick. And how come this is not happening? How come we can control a few thousand people, us billions? Because they have managed to corrupt our democracies here and there, with some flames flickering in Europe and America and Japan here and there, that we want to, and here and there in the global South, that are threatened here and there too, but we will keep them. We will support them. We will manage to do it, I'm sure, because we have such a huge numerical advantage. It's really no contest if we can exercise that advantage. Okay. And I read recently about the white paper revolution at the end of the COVID lockdown in China, where you get arrested for holding up a white piece of paper because they know you want to write in that, let Xi retire, Xi Jinping, let this dictator, having changed the term limits for a leader, let him retire instead. That's what the white paper meant. So they're getting arrested for that. And this will inevitably happen. But actually, now this brings me to the politics. I don't want to go on for length on this Thanksgiving. I want you to feel thankful that I'm not going to be talking for too long. And so I will try not to. And this brings me to politics. Terrible atrocity inflicted by Hamas on this nice people, nice Israelis living in southern Israel. And I understand that the majority of the people in the south were the sort of do-gooders, among the most strongest do-gooders. They were trying to get along with the Palestinians. They were flying kites with them. They were the ones on those kibbutz and other places were the ones trying to ameliorate the horrible oppression that the leadership were doing. And I wanted to make some statements about pro-Palestinian statements and pro-Israeli statements, both. And I realized it was impossible. If you say one or the other, then you're just completely canceled by everybody. I didn't say anything for some time on my podcast or in my unwritten Substack. I write them, but I don't publish them yet. So I don't know why, for family reason. But because everything's so polarized. However, I want to say today I want to just draw your attention to think about the bad leadership in all these cases of these conflicts that are going on. Bad leadership. Not bad people, not bad nations, bad leadership. Okay? Kingpin is Putin, who is a KGB trained person, trained in the sort of killer intelligence service from the Cold War, which we have our own in the Americas. So I'm not being especially anti-Russian. I love the Russian people, actually. They are real people, and we want them to be free. And they haven't been since the KGB reversed Gorbachev's glasnost, open restructuring, trying to give his people, when he was leader, give them democracy so they can control that leadership. So, and he's the one, by the way, we said, of course, we're not expanding NATO and this and that because we don't need to, because you're withdrawing from your domineering business in Eastern Europe. So that's what we promised. We didn't promise the KGB that. We know KGB will not be withdrawing. Putin was so angry that he was in Germany, living it up as an elite, intelligence killer guy. And he's a great catastrophe of the 20th century, he said. So he was going to rebuild it. So we didn't make him any promise. And we had to answer the demand and the claim and the cry, the plea for protection from the tiny little Baltic states on the edge of Russia there, and from the Romanians and from the Poles, who would be first to be wiped out by KGB to get back into East Germany and wherever they want all of Europe. They always did. So you can't make promises like to them to abandon the democratic, lovely EU people who used to include even the English before they got corrupted by Londongrad and by a bunch of weird, old-fashioned dukes and barons, with the queen and king unable to do anything about it because of their powerlessness. So Putin sent Lavrov to the Ayatollah because he's losing badly in Ukraine. He is killing his own people, much greater rate than he's killing Ukrainians. He seems to be holding a line that's built up with a bunch of mines in the ground and stuff. And the Ukrainians don't have endless people. And also, although they have soldiers, they are not the type of generals and political leaders who just don't care how many of them are killed. So they're going slowly and methodically. And everybody's acting like, oh, geez, they can't break it, they're losing, blah, blah. Baloney, they're doing great. They've chased the Russian fleet out of Crimea. They are they're doomed to succeed. Putin's oligarchy, which is not Russia, his little oligarchy, vertical of power, is a terrorist organization he has openly admitted. In order to quell Prigozhin and assassinate him, first quell him by deceiving him and then assassinate him. In order to do that, he had to openly admit that Wagner was his instrument, Wagner is a terrorist group. So he's pulling strings of these bad political leaders, not only in Russia, but also he's supporting a leader who is killing the women in his own society in order to enforce a ridiculous, unfashionable dress code, namely the Ayatollah Khamenei, with his majlis, troops who are secret police killing Iranians and imprisoning and executing women because they don't dress right. So obviously lost control of his country, but still has domineering and murderous, lethal control over his people. So he sent his minister, Lavrov, to him. Putin did. He said, I'm losing badly in Ukraine. And if it becomes really open that I lost, the traitors, the useful idiots I have in America, like the insurrectionist Republicans led by my faithful Trump, who wants to give me Ukraine and who wants to have a penthouse in Moscow and with me next door to me, and who's a complete traitor and therefore could convert America to being in my pocket. And I need to hold on so he'll have a chance to win. If it's shown openly what a loser I am, then the fact that he's a loser might be awoken in people's minds in America. And I can't betray America and destroy American democracy, which I've been doing gray zone warfare for 30 years about. We KGB people have been doing. And we have some fools who are working for us. Bannon, the current speaker, whatever his name is. And of course, the kingpin is the loser, the even pathetic capitalist, the bad capitalist, the incompetent capitalist, namely Mr. Drumpf, who really comes from East Germany, his lineage. So I need your help, Ayatollah. And you know what? Israel has really dictatorial, crazy government just now, a minority, tiny little government trying to wreck their democracy. The main Israeli people don't like. They're protesting in the street. They're sort of weak. Even some say they won't serve in the military. So we're guaranteed to get a really proper, crazy reaction out of him. But I need you to call up Hezbollah guy, tell him to attack in the north. I need you to call up Hamas guys living in Qatar in comfortable hotels with lots of money and tell their people under the boot in Gaza to commit suicide, to stir up a huge flip out in that place and wreck the nice Israelis and wreck the peaceful, ordinary Palestinians. I don't care what happens there, but that will really weaken Biden, who is supporting Europe to support Zelensky, my enemy, who is beating me up. So please, let's create chaos there. And by the way, I'm creating nice chaos in Sudan through my Wagner chief there, who is now my loyal follower since I got rid of Prigozhin. So it's this cabal of these dictatorial leaders that is to be blamed, not the Palestinians and not the Israelis and not the Ukrainians and not the Russians and not the Sudanese and not the Iranians, but the bad leaders, not the Lebanese for sure, but the horrible dictators who could use religion sometimes. They do. KGB now is great because they're unified with the corrupt patriarch of Orthodoxy in Russia. They bought him off. He's disobeying his own boss, his own pope in Istanbul, and supporting the vertical of power, the terrorists who pretend to be the government of Russia. But they're actually terrorists. They're actually Wagner worldwide, supporting any kind of terroristic dictator anywhere. So my statement to everyone, and the Israeli people are so freaked out, oh, anti-Semitic. The Palestinian people are also so freaked out, oh, everybody's anti-Semitic. Because actually, guess what? The Palestinians are also have a Semitic language, which is what Semitic refers to, actually. It's nothing to do with the nation of Israel, nothing to do with the nation that is been stillborn, is being strangled in the womb by bad leaders, not by Rabin, not by Barak, not by all the people protesting the destruction of the magnificent Israeli Supreme Court and this magnificent Israeli democracy. One criminal guy who's under indictment for corruption, like our guy, indictment for 91 counts of bribery, lying, corruption, insurrection. Those guys don't represent us Americans. He didn't even represent us when he was supposedly president. He just did business from the White House, which he's incompetent at doing. He's not a competent businessman. He just didn't lie and cheat. He's a gangster. So is Putin. They all just want to keep their control of the world. But guess what? Even Mother Nature doesn't want them to in control. She was sent typhoons and hurricanes and floods. She's so distressed by their disequilibrating the planet with their greed, burning dinosaur carcasses as oil and coal and gas. 2000, wrecking the lives of 8 billion plus trillion animals. This is ridiculous. And we can recognize it. So let us all be on this Thanksgiving Day pro-Israel, pro-Palestine, pro-Ukraine, pro-Russia. Zelensky threatens to liberate the Russians from this criminal, terrorist, gangster oligarchy that is occupying the Kremlin illegitimately without proper democracy of real elections. Sure, they have some supporters who are so confused by fake propaganda, like we have. Our oligarch has fake Fox News, even pretends to hate it. But meanwhile, they're lying up a storm, and our people are so confused. They think that the worst businessman known to the public, who owned 2 casinos and the house lost in both cases, which that's impossible. The house never loses in casinos, but he lost in 2 cases because he's so incompetent. And yet they think he's better at business than Joe Biden, who has created 15 million jobs, more than all 5 previous Republican presidents, including some of the more weaker Democratic ones, and who is preventing a recession in a complex situation where post-COVID should have been a recession, preventing it by strengthening the middle class, is moving to deal with climate change and trying to restrain, but not insanely, in a balanced way, the our own oil oligarchs. Because it's all right, dude. We're capitalists. Social capitalism is fine. Not laissez-faire capitalism, not piratical capitalism, as Buckminster Fuller used to call it. Social capitalism is good. We make more money that way. So, and then you can share it more effectively. So let us give thanks for the endurance of the Russian people who, believe me, once Putin topples, they will throw him out with gusto. And that our job at that time will be to help him go to Hawaii, like we took Marcos. Let him be rehabilitated. Let him relax his fear of his own bodyguards behind his long 40-meter long table, of his own ministers, of his own generals, of his own terrorist gangster. He's the godfather of these gangsters, right? Who they can rebel against him like Prigozhin did. Let him live free of fear and stress. We don't want any ill to come to any of these ex-dictators. Even they have caused the death of so many, because vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. Karma will get him anyway in future life because of this killing. We don't have to. We can try to help him do some reparations, do some repentance in life, so it'll be less heavy when he goes forward. Okay. So this is my podcast. That's it. I'm going to be brief, I hope, less than 30 minutes. And love to you all on this wonderful Thanksgiving time. Thanks to our Native Americans. They didn't allow themselves to be exterminated. They're there giving us environmentalist lessons now. We have Secretary of Interior as Native person. They want us to learn to take care of our water and our trees and our soil, get rid of Monsanto and horrible and agribusiness poisoning the soil, putting cancer in the soil and in the processed foods against us. They want to help us overcome that, heal us. After all that they suffered, they still want to. I give thanks. Martin Scorsese showing how they were abused, the beautiful Osage people. And finally, they produced a prima ballerina. Really, the regular people, the individual peace-loving, neighbor-friendly, nice people in all the countries. The only time they're forced to behave badly by bad leaders, but they eventually vote them out when they have a chance. Okay? And we give thanks for that. This continuation of the 20th century's bad wars, cold, hot, is only because those leaders think they're still in the 20th century and are still trying to rule by fear because they're scared. So we have to reassure them as we vote them out. We can love them too if they stop causing harm. Okay? But meanwhile, we're not going to be confused that they are what they're coercing their nation into doing. And we're not going to hate their nation and their people because of their bad behavior. Okay? And thanks to you for listening. And I don't know, a few, 20 or 30 maybe will. And you spread this meme. Don't demonize any whole peoples of any kind. And give them all a space to vote their leaders in and out. Genuinely. We will then have peace. Okay. Thank you very much. Gewadi nyodo da. Duchi kolo trubjone. Toachita malupati salakobasho. By the merit of this little talk and the merit of your listening to it, inspiring me to speak, then however few we are, may we soon become enlightened, perfectly awakened and enlightened, and may we help others to become equal to us, since we don't do that in order to somehow domineer on anybody. We want to bring them equal to realizing the beauty and the joy of life. Wisdom is bliss. All right? Thank you. Bye.
The Bob Thurman podcast is produced through a Creative Commons No Derivatives license. Please be sure to like, share, and repost on your favorite social media platforms. And it's brought to you in part through the generous support of the Tibet House US Menla membership community and listeners like you. To learn more about the benefits of Tibet House membership, please visit our websites at thus.org, menla.org, and bobthurman.com. Tashi Delek, and thanks for tuning in.